Welcome to What Matters, a podcast by PVKs, recorded live from InterSolar Europe 2026. Across our conversations in Munich, one message came through again and again. Solar has won the argument on cost. It is cheap, fast to deploy, and central to the future of power system. But winning creates a new set of problems. At InterSolar, we spoke with more than a dozen voices across the industry. In this episode, you'll hear from Jenny Chase from BloombergNEF, Josephine Berg from S&P Global, Stefan Müller from Enerparc, and more. We start with Jenny Chase, who has spent 2 decades tracking solar's rise from niche technology to global infrastructure. Jenny is very direct about the question facing the industry now. If solar has evolved the problem of cost, what problem comes next? I have Jenny Chase from BNEF. How are you doing, Jenny?
Great, Conrado. It's hot here, but exciting to be here yet another year.
The audience knows you, but let me do the formal introduction. Jenny founded, as you know, the BNEF group, the BloombergNEF group, back in 2005, and she spent 2 decades tracking the industry from niche technology to global infrastructure. And I'm curious, I've been very privileged to be talking with people in the industry for 10, 15 years, 20 years, and what is special? What is different this InterSolar, you think?
It's a trend that's been going on, but it's more diversified now. For the same reason that I now call myself a clean power analyst rather than a solar analyst. The future of solar rests no longer on solar so much as with helping the rest of the world catch up with the fact that now power is really cheap whenever the sun is out. And it's going to be really important both for the solar industry and for the energy transition now to shift when we use power to those hours when the sun is out.
So when you say clean power, because it's funny you say this, I do have this more and more the feeling like we're talking storage, we're talking grid, we're talking infrastructure.
EVs and flexible charging. There are 2 halls down there of charging infrastructure for EVs. And you might say, oh, that's just another part of the system. But it's not. Charging electric vehicles when people are at work is a huge thing that would help the solar industry.
That's wonderful. And is that, I'm guessing, that is already, because one thing that I was curious, right? You being in the sector you founded BNEF, right?
I didn't found it myself. I was employee number 3. I founded the solar team.
One of the founding team members, right? But I'm guessing this type of transition where I do feel like we used to talk more solar, right? And we were very proud of ourselves. And nowadays, the whole thing is just much more complex.
We did great. We wanted the solar industry to be big, and now it's really big. And now it's changing things, and we're part of a wider infrastructure and a wider transition. And in some respects, solar is a victim of its own success. I mean, we're predicting that the global solar installations will fall 2% this year from last year. And that is mostly because in major markets, there's just too much solar when the sun is out, and that is hurting the economics of further solar power plants.
And it's definitely the kind of problems that we want to have. We're successful, and now new challenges come ahead.
It's a problem that was inevitable if we were successful, and we were successful. And now we've got to figure out the next steps.
I also feel like there is almost kind of a storytelling crisis at some level, the whole topics are more complex, and there is a threat in the storage, there is a threat in policy making and benefits. So it became harder to kind of summarize, we have to do these 2 things. It's just too many fronts, too many...
Exactly. Like back in 2005, it was like, okay, we'll make solar cheap, right? And even in 2015, it was still somewhat, let's make solar cheap and it'll work. Now, I'm not sure that making solar cheaper will actually help that much.
I'm curious about the thread this year, because you've been keeping the thread. Every year you talk about and you're addressing the move to clean power, you said, right?
Clean power, yes.
Power, it is. Are you preparing did you release the 2026 one already?
I did. I do it in October. So it's not due yet, because I generally figure it's best to sit down once every year and figure out what you need to update. Because the other thing is, when you're talking about these things, you don't say the obvious things as often as you probably should.
Okay. Do you have examples of how that happened in the past?
Well, I still find people who are surprised that solar manufacturing is a horrible business. I mean, people here have still asked me, how do I get into solar manufacturing? And I'm like, please don't.
Why would you do that?
Unfortunately, they are our clients, and I have a feeling this guy's job is to get his company into solar manufacturing, so that was not terribly helpful for him, but unfortunately it's still true.
Yeah, and of course you're relating to how low the prices are, how competitive the whole thing became.
And there's massive overcapacity. I mean, there's manufacturing capacity around the world to make a terawatt of solar modules this year, and the global market is about 640 gigawatts, we reckon. So that's a lot of manufacturing capacity not being used. Not all of it is in China. Yeah. It's tough, but we don't need any more solar module cell, wafer or polysilicon manufacturing capacity.
Well, being on the software side of things, I have to tell that I think we have a very good experience of how things are moving there, right? Like we're doing a great work of things that it can sound as simple or mundane. Of course, in the day-to-day, it's much harder, but we're helping teams make sure that the files that they send from one project to the other make to the end, right? Like the usual experience of people in the day-to-day business where they're using tens of tools sometimes that are really made for solar. Just covering that basic need is helping increase productivity, efficiency. I guess there is a lot of getting the head down and working on some boring stuff.
But it's super important because the modules are cheap, and now what's holding solar back is at least partly that boring stuff, the admin.
Exactly. And I guess when we talk about the prices that we were saying before, the usually topics that come about is cannibalization, right? And the storage and the role of storage is try to help there. Do you see a lot of progress there lately?
So there is a storage boom going on. It's not always directly connected to the markets where cannibalization is worse. So Spain, for example, in 9% of hours in 2025, the power prices on the spot market were 0 or negative. Spain is still not particularly building storage. A lot of the Eastern European countries and the UK are building storage, partly because they can see this is going to happen and they think it's a good time for a big procurement round. But yeah, there isn't actually that much correlation right now between places that need storage and places that have it.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm wondering, you were just mentioning the case of manufacturing, for example, where it's a good example people might get wrong what's really going on. Do you have other examples where you feel like people are still stubborn, that they really understand that we've changed phases, that we're in a new era?
This might not be what you want to hear, but I'm somewhat fed up of people saying, oh, small-scale solar isn't affected by power prices. It should bloody well be affected by power prices, because one of the things that we need to encourage consumer behavior to be more solar-friendly is for people who don't have solar projects to shift their electricity demand to when it's sunny as well. And for that, they need an incentive, and they need to understand this is a long-term incentive. It's not going away. You can structure your algorithms, etc., to using power when it's sunny. And that means that small-scale solar will be affected by power prices. Because even if you're a homeowner, okay, you'll get power from your solar panels when the sun's out, but you'll also get it very cheap from the grid when the sun's out. And that's kind of a reason not to install solar. It's also a reason to install a battery that can charge.
Perfect. But that doesn't mean, of course, that we are not excited about distributed generation, all the evolution that's been going on there.
I mean, I'm kind of excited, but I kind of think of solar as all the same thing. That all generates when the sun is out. There's not that fundamental a difference.
Okay. And do you feel like that the shift from solar to people talk more like batteries or the other people somehow people talk less about solar, understandably so?
Well, solar is in some respects fairly simple.
Yeah.
You put these panels in the sun, they generate power when it's sunny. That is both their beauty and their downside. They only generate when it's sunny, or at least when the sun's out on them somewhat. And it doesn't really matter where you put them. You can put them on anything. You can put them on what's most convenient, basically. But there's not that huge a difference.
I get it. And I'm curious, for the October thread, I'm guessing you're already kind of thinking about it. Are there anything specific about this year or even InterSolar there, you think?
I mean, I'm hoping to have some updates on how we're moving towards time of use tariffs in Europe. Spain has a widespread one. Actually, Australia in Australia, the government has said that all retailers must offer an option with 3 free hours a day during sunny hours. I think that's quite a good example of time of day prices being moved firmly in that direction.
I've been listening a lot to Australia this year, especially here into InterSolar Global, Solar Europe, Solar Power Europe, sorry, did their own annual report, and they did like a highlight on Australia, right? It's becoming a good example for many of the challenges that we have for the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's starting also to be evidence that batteries in Australia are pushing up prices in the middle of the day from where they would otherwise be, which is great for solar plants.
One thing that has been happening, I've been listening to people, even people in business, telling me that we both need, and we're just getting more professionals from other areas. We're becoming more mainstream, which is a good thing. And then we're going to need the collaboration of people who are coming from oil and gas, from other mainstream sectors. So I don't know if you've been observing that movement also on your side.
To a certain extent. I don't see many people coming in from oil and gas, but certainly, and let's face it, at the moment, you probably aren't coming into solar.
Okay.
Like it's kind of a flat sector.
Yeah.
Like you might be going from telecoms into storage or from oil and gas into storage, but I think our sector is kind of flat this year in terms of employment.
I feel like the longer term analysis is a little bit more optimistic, but I don't know if you subscribe to that vision of optimism for the future.
I mean, look, our global build forecasts do start going up again after this year. So kind of, but then when people wanted us to drill down on exactly where it is, we have trouble because a lot of markets have a lot of solar. What's also happening, though, I think, is that solar is just like taking over storage. You know, a lot of the big manufacturers now do solar and storage. A lot of the big names out here, probably including yourselves, find yourself talking about storage a lot.
Yes, absolutely. It's everybody's.
So yeah, I mean, it's more that we're sort of absorbing. I tend to think of us as just like absorbing storage rather than.
Jenny, I know you're a very busy person, and I know InterSolar Hour is very expensive, so I want to really thank you for your time today here.
It's been a great pleasure speaking with you, Conrad, and have a great show.
Jenny gives us the market level version of the challenge. Solar is cheap. But that does not mean that solar is simple. Once solar becomes a major part of power system, that hard question moves to grids, flexibility, storage, price, cannibalization, and whether projects can still earn enough money in the hours when they generate. To take that further, we spoke with Josephine Berg from S&P Global, who has been analyzing solar and renewable power markets since 2010. Josephine brings this into the next phase of the industry. Solar has grown up, and it now has to operate like a mature part of the energy system. So Josephine Berg is an Associate Director of Renewables Markets at S&P Global Energy. Josephine has been analyzing solar and renewable power markets since 2010, following the sector from its early growth years to its current role at the center of the global power system. And we had the opportunity of talking before, Josephine, like what was very interesting, I think. And it's a conversation that we're having more and more here at InterSolar. How we are maturing, how we are consolidating, right? Tell me a little bit about your experience there. You've been following the sector for many years now.
Yeah, I was going to say that the only similarity between this InterSolar and 2010 when I came here for the first time is the temperature. Then it was also in the middle of the heat wave. The air conditioning didn't work. But for the rest, everything is completely different. Then solar was a kind of a niche part of the power system. It was growing, was heavily subsidized, and a lot of dynamics there, trying to figure out how to get the subsidies in the best way over a short period of time. And now we're talking about systems. We're talking about how all this solar that it's amazing. We've beaten all the forecasts.
It is incredible.
And
it is to celebrate.
Now we're looking at how do you make that how do you now make that a part of the system.
That is incredible. I think it's a weird feeling for the people who have been in the sector a lot. Like in one hand, we come with a clear purpose. We are proud of it, right? We're definitely proud of not being old school energy sector. But at the same time, when you become business, guess what? You're going to do more business stuff, right? Do you get a lot? You still that's a lot of the conversation talk track nowadays? Like people are still used to being the subsidy phase?
I mean, I think we've kind of come over a lot of the subsidy focus. But there's a lot of confusion on what do we do now? Yeah. What do you do now when you're grown up? I mean, we said it before, okay, get a suit and cut your hair and come out with the big, in the big league. And what do you do? Well, yeah, what do you do? Where is your purpose? Like where do you go now? How do you keep business going? Where do you innovate? What direction should you go? I mean, and where are we heading? And how is solar received also by others? And where does solar really fit in now when we reach this point of being like the largest new share of new capacity, cheapest source of energy or source of electricity?
I feel like there is also just that, when you're maturing, when you're growing up and you're doing, it's business as usual in many levels. It's less about the one or the two or the three top, is the complexity of what the sector is and it means, right? Like storage coming in more and more nowadays. The AI conversations coming in more and more time, right? It's not that it was one thing before, but I think it's just much more complex. There is not only one approach to all the challenges that we have as a sector.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many challenges. I mean, there's always been the question about location, like what is the market that you're looking at. You always have to be, you have to adapt to the market that you're in. All markets don't look the same. So we have a lot of solar, but that's not everywhere. A few countries have more solar than others. There's still a lot of like white spaces. Less and less so, but there's still new markets to discover. So you have the complexity again of trying to figure out like what's the situation in the market that you're targeting, but then also how do you integrate? We talked a lot of 10 years or 16 years ago. We talked a lot about vertical integration and how manufacturers are trying to cover the whole value chain. And now the conversation is more about horizontal integration. Yeah. How do you step out and how do you look at what do? You do solar, you do storage, you do, you maybe look at data centers and like how do you integrate with that, and just trying to see on the whole spectrum of the business.
It's definitely a consolidation phase as well. I feel like there is less room for improvisation. There is more need for processes, for experience, right? Do you feel like the sector is ready for that phase in that sense?
I think there's a lot of diverse approaches here, right?
Okay.
And again, you will have developers that were used to chase specific opportunities, or go do greenfield development, buy land, get a project ready, and get it out the door, and kind of sell it to someone else who would then have to look at the future of the project. And now you have to look at even if you're that kind of greenfield developer, you have to look at the value. And through every step of the supply chain or of the value chain, what is the value that you're bringing to the table? Like what are you bringing to the system? And I think that's very new for some.
Okay.
But it also means that we all have to innovate. And I think there's also a lot of people with experience from other sectors that have come into solar and storage over the past years. So I think there's also a sharing there of knowledge from the more experienced electricity people.
Absolutely, and I think we welcome that experience, right? That we welcome that diversity of experience, because guess what? We need it. Otherwise, we're not going to move.
You need the experience, but you also want to keep that innovative drive, because we're not ready yet.
Okay.
Like there's still more to come, and I mean 2030. What will we be talking about? The world is just about to install more data centers, more electric vehicles. Electricity demand is booming across the world. I mean, our forecast is that over the next 5 years, electricity demand globally will increase roughly is the same amount that the North American market, like the power demand in the North American market annually. Oh, wow. So you'll have that big increase in electricity demand, and where's that electricity gonna come from? And renewables are here to provide that. But how and in what pace and what shape and form? You have big scale, you have small scale, you have mini grids, you have off grid, you have balconies.
Yes.
There are so many different pieces of this puzzle to still put together. And yeah, that's my job is to say what the world will look like in 2030, but I'm very excited to see what it's actually going to look like.
You don't have the crystal ball, but I guess there are some clear transits. Are there easy answers for what the world's going to look like in this future?
Just the way the world changes so quickly.
Yes.
It's very hard to imagine. I mean, there's so many different political drivers. Will we have another energy shock? That's like a big question. Are data centers going to develop at the pace that we expect, or there are also supply bottlenecks there, and how everything's going to interact together, and again, very much depending on region by region, country by country, how exactly the story will unfold. But we need innovation, and we can't be kind of stuck in old thinking.
And do you feel that policymaking is corresponding to the job, is making progress there?
I mean, policymakers, and here like in 2010, the holy grail was that we will get to grid parity and we don't need regulation anymore. Like 2010, we need the industry needed subsidies, and they were claiming, we need this because it's too, we need the scale, and to scale up we need the subsidies, and then eventually solar will be so cheap that you don't need regulation anymore because it will just take off, and it did take off, but. You still a lot of it is through auctions, through support schemes, because policymakers were looking for a cheap electricity and fast to install electricity sources, and supporting solar was a way to get there, a way to meet targets as well. And so there's regulation. Regulation is always there, and then even if you're completely market-based, or you want to work completely on a merchant, on a PPA basis, the electricity sector, it's regulated. Like there is,
by definition,
there are so many laws that you need to get around and figure out, and what you can do, and what the market looks like, how do you interact with other electricity sources. There are grid charges. It's just there's just this other level of complexity that maybe in 2010 wasn't really part of everyone's head. So
it's not a sector that can allow, policymaking is always there by definition, is defined, right?
So what are policymakers doing? Again, very much scattered in very different parts of the world. When we see the European Union now, again, pushing hard for renewables, for energy security, to get more affordable electricity. But that is not always trickling down to the member states because they have more short-term concerns. They need to look at what voters are wanting, and try to balance that. But no, overall, it's about affordable electricity, and in many cases, you need that electricity sooner than later.
Absolutely. And I feel like even in the conversations we're having here, even the people that are mostly business focused and is celebrating together with us the fact that the economics are behind us, everybody is emphasizing how important it is to have a clear, the clear rules of the game that we can, especially in the European market, that we can make it a little bit more equal to work across countries, because we, depending on each country, still the changes are very, very marked. So policymaking is always going to be there one way or another for sure. You were talking before how we were coming from the past, like it's always the case, and we were coming from a sector that it was more oriented to subsidy, or even the mission, if you will, or the vision of the future. And now suddenly we are there. We managed to reach it, right? We are the mature sector that we wanted to be. But I guess it's good that we are coming from where we are coming, right? We're still newer, we're still fresh, and I think some newer ideas are also welcome to the phase that we are here. It's not always all about business, right? There is room from some ideas and ideations as well.
Of course. Like it's, I mean, well, you need the numbers. You need the numbers to work. Otherwise, you're not gonna, you can't be idealistic for very long if the numbers don't work. But I mean, there's definitely things to celebrate. Like solar and wind last year produced more electricity in Europe than fossil fuels, and just so we're getting, there is actually an impact, which there was a time where there were questions. There was like, okay, all this solar is being installed and it's been subsidized, but what's the real impact on the electricity footprint? And now we're seeing that. So I think that's it's not only about business. We're also reaching somewhere that we should probably try to get there even faster.
Yeah, and if other sectors have to educate us on what comes next, also the fresh approach that we have, right? Like one topic that I think a lot is it's an important topic for us at PVKs is women in solar, right? And you're a woman in solar for many years, have been in the sector. I'm kind of curious about your experience there, what you've been following. Do you feel like we are better than the usual sectors when it comes to that representation?
And I think things have developed a lot. Solar storage, I mean electricity. In many ways, it's an engineering dominated business. A big share of engineers coming out of university are still men. So there might be more. When you look around, you still see more men on the floor than women because of the type of sector. But I definitely seen a big change in terms of leadership, in terms of just attracting more talent through the industry. And I think what's interesting is that when you have a new sector like solar and storage, is that it's created a new opportunity in many cases, like companies that didn't have a renewables department before, and then they have a renewables department, and that creates new opportunities for new leaders to step in and fill those roles. And maybe the hierarchies are not really created yet. So I think that's also created opportunities for women to move into leadership positions. And I think that's also what's exciting when you're working in a new industry, that new like companies have to adapt, and there will be new opportunities also for new thinking.
And that's definitely needed and welcome, and I think that's it's interesting insight, like on how people might come from the renewable sectors of companies, and like to your point, less hierarchy, like more opportunities there. That's interesting. Great. And what do you think? We just started here in InterSolar. It's early to call, but anything that is like different from this year, or even last year, or you still see the same talks? We're still talking storage. We're still talking grid.
I mean, storage, grid. Of course, they're going to continue being big parts of the conversation. I mean, we have our forecast for Europe this year is that storage additions will more than double compared to last year. I mean, we're very bullish on storage, and that you see that in the conversations now, that this is really this is real. It's happening. It's not eventually we'll need storage, but we see that as part of the conversations now, that yes, it's happening. We're actually doing business now, and it's a very busy year. Value propositions is a very, very big important topic, and I think data centers, the data center conversation. I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's not just it's not just in our sector, but that's really come up a lot. Like, what will data centers mean for the future of electricity, and what are renewables, what are batteries going to do in that sector?
And even more to that growing demand, right? That is making us inevitable together with the economics. It's very interesting talk. Okay, Josephine, I think that's a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here today.
Thank you.
And I'll see you around.
See you around.
Josephine brings the conversation back to business discipline. The solar industry is still growing, but growth alone is not the same as healthy economics. Developers, investors, and operators now have to think much more carefully about revenue models, storage, PPAs, market design, and long-term asset performance. This is where Stefan Müller from Enerparc comes in. Stefan brings the operator perspective, what it really takes to build, own, operate, and scale utility-scale solar when the bottleneck is no longer only panels, but grid access, storage, permitting, financing, and execution. Of course, here with Stefan today. Stefan is the CEO and co-founder of Enerparc. You've been in this game. This has been the chat that we've had all the time. Like, you've been in this game forever, for 25 years at least.
Yep, I think.
Is that right?
I think even more than 25 years. So I've seen a lot of InterSolars or Smarter E's. What is the new name? I've seen a lot of ups and downs. A lot of players coming and going. But finally, it's still one of the largest exhibition and conference in Europe, or even globally, I would say.
Yeah, the observation that I got from my team is like, of course, it's not compared to China because you're not gonna win.
It's a different world.
But it's the leading one after that, right? And we are still the leading market after the U.S. Before the U.S., like 30% bigger than the U.S. So we're a bigger market over there, anyways. But for me, that's every time we talk, Stefan, the conversation started the same, and I think that's how we start the conversation today. It's like 25 years. The joke before was, you've seen it all, maybe you've seen it too much. Tell me about that experience, please.
I think I'm still optimistic, and for sure I've seen a lot of ups and downs, and we had also a situation where in Europe the market was down. So I don't know, 2012, 2013, where we had only 2.5 gigawatt in Germany, and I think Europe was nearly dead. And then I think they had only 3 halls here or 4 halls, and now everything is packed again. Okay, they combined it with storage. They combined it with the Smarter E, and I think it's a good idea because everything comes together now. And I think that's the reason I have seen a lot. I've seen a lot of ups and downs, but I'm still optimistic.
And you were telling me about this optimism because it still is the case. Like, you're going to go to the conferences, you're going to open the magazines, and people are going to say the solar coaster, the projections for the next 3 or 4 years, they're not terrific, right? But I'm guessing you're seeing like the real long term here, right? That's why you keep optimistic?
I think I would say in the beginning, we were all completely dependent on the governmental's move. Yeah, if they were open to support us and give us feed-in tariffs or funding, then everything was good. If we had a conservative government and it went down, then everyone moaned around. But I think at the moment we are getting more and more independent of what the government wants and what the government says. And especially in Germany, when the government says nothing, the market is still there. Is it PV alone? No, it's always now with BESS. Is it probably even in an integration of other advanced infrastructure activities? You bring consumers into the PV plant. You think about how we can supply data centers with green PPAs. A lot of new ideas are coming. I mean, we are here now in the morning of the first day, and we see a lot of people passing by. I think the booth is also full, your booth, so a lot of people. I was in the front desk and waited for you, but finally 10 people talked to me immediately and said, "Can I help you?" So I think you see the mood is going in the right direction. And I think we always have to invent ourselves, but I think we are good in this.
Exactly. And you told me also that you feel like maybe some people still believe that it's about when we go about the incentives or when we go about what the sector needs, that people go subsidies, right? But that's not the game anymore.
No,
the economics are there now.
Yeah, the economics are there, the whole subsidies. I mean, we are part of the new infrastructure, or we are the new infrastructure. Let's say it like this. And this means we have to learn also a lot. We have to follow regulation. We have to understand what are the issues of the DSO or the TSOs. We have to respect the situation that we have negative hours, and we need to ensure that we work with flexible connection agreements and so on. So there are a lot of things which we still have to learn as the industry, because we are moving in the old infrastructure, in old traditions, but they also need to come to us. So we meet somewhere in the middle, and that's the reason why I think it is a super dynamic market all around the exhibition here, and I think it's cool.
But it's definitely a moment of consolidation. I think there is a lot of consensus around that. Tell me about Enerparc, like in all these decades of work with Enerparc. What is the role that it's playing this game now?
I think we started from the beginning as a traditional service partner for EPC, because we decided to focus on one thing, and this is large-scale PV. So we did it all around the world. We had a business unit in US. We did installation in Kazakhstan and in Lebanon, wherever. So really all around the world. But then we recognized if you want to survive, you need to be in the whole value chain. You need to understand every step from connection to the landowner till you sell the energy to a large conglomerate. So, and everything in between needs to be controlled by you. This is a bit our strategy. And that's the reason why we said, okay, when we do this, we cannot be in every country anymore. So let's be in the country where the market growth is still there. And this is, from our point of view, Germany, Spain, and France. We left Portugal also because they reached already a quite high certain amount of percentages of green energy. And the economy is also not so large. I think Germany has a super interesting potential because the electrification is still in the beginning. Yeah, I think a lot of countries in the south, they do not heat, or they heat with electricity. And in Germany, as you probably know, 90% is with gas and oil and whatever. So, and now the heat pumps are coming, EVs are coming, batteries are coming. So, and I think this combination is then interesting. So that means the latest 500 terawatt hours, which we see in Germany, will definitely grow. And we want to be part of it.
Yeah, and Germany's been leading that way in Europe for a while now, and rightly so, and super interested to see that evolution. I'm wondering about, like, you in the position that you have in Enerparc, also about the profile of professionals in the company. Have you seen that change a lot lately? Is that good? What are you seeing there, the professionals working with you now?
Naya, I think we have a lot of partners for sure, but we have also now nearly 600 people working for us. But I think there's also a change. You know? So from the traditional way of doing, for example, what you do here to design a plant, you have to bring a lot of AI into it. Yeah. So I think you have to be faster, you have to be quicker, you have to be more efficient. So you have to do, I would say, much more designs with one person than we did in the past. So everything is AI driven here now, no? But I think it's clear. We have, as Enerparc, more than 500 sites. Only in Germany, 5 gigawatt on our balance sheet. That means you get a lot of data, and you cannot manage this anymore with human beings. So you have to integrate the big data which we create with the AI, and then you can probably be much more efficient. And this is where we have to work on now. The kilowatt hours needs to be cheaper than the market. This is still where we are, but we have to work hard.
And we cannot get that cheaper through modules anymore, through like that. That's now it's processes, it's software, right? That's where you can cut the margins.
Correct. And I think the modules anyhow are only at the moment 25% of the whole capex. Yeah, that means for sure it is important that the price are reaching a value which is acceptable. But finally, if this goes up or down a little bit, has not a huge impact anymore. We have to work on every step of the value chain. And this is construction, this is regulation, this is soft cost, this is design work, this is development. So, and everything has for sure an impact. We have to be, as Enerparc, also much more radical with our capex. So if we reach, a higher price, higher cost than we expect, or the connection to the grid is only 1 or 2 kilometers longer than expected, then you have to kill the project, or you have to wait. Yeah? So we don't kill, we park it, as we say. Because you never know if there is another substation coming around the corner, and then the connection to the grid is smaller. This is what we have to look for it. We have to be much more radical in our decision processes.
I also think it became much more complex game. Like it feels like it used to be like maybe 10 years ago where people would say, well, what we really need are incentives or like better targets for greenhouse gas emissions or whatever. Like it felt like getting the 2 or 3 things would solve and save us. And now there are so many fronts. There is storage, there is AI, right?
And also there are the regulations which are changed. Then we have issues in a few countries like in Germany where we have 866 DSOs. In UK you have 5. Yeah, so that means everyone has a bit their own rules of the game, their own specification, and this is not how we can work in the future. So I think we have to do a lot in all segments, in all units, to bring down the cost. And I think it moves in the right direction. But for example, you cannot change the 866 DSOs to 5 in 5 years. This is impossible.
It's understandable, impossible, right? We're all anxious about that movement. The role of business in all of that, Stefan, is like, it is what it is. Like we're looking for cutting costs, we're looking for the profit. That's what we have to do. Do you think it's much more than that, or that's all we have to do?
No, I think it's much more. No? So, and even if we, in the past, we all talked about performance ratio and how is the performance of the plant. Then we recognized PR is not euro. So finally, when we analyzed our assets, then we said everything is counted in euro, nothing else. But even this at the moment is also not so good, because now we have blue sky here, but I just checked on my mobile phone in the app that there is no wind. That means we have no negative prices right now, which I think is good. So a lot of things have an impact right now, and finally you have to sell a product. And this is a green electron. This is kilowatt hours. And when you design a system, you already have to look ahead into the future. What you want to do with this kilowatt hour? Is it that you want to produce probably also in winter time, because then the value of kilowatt hour is higher, then you design the system in a different way. Yeah? In the past, it was purely on investments versus capex versus financing. But now it is when to produce an electron. This is the key of everything. And if you have a chance to integrate it with batteries or for example, own consumers on the field, then I think it's the way ahead. But it's really, the complexity increases, but this is also the cool thing in our industry.
That's wonderful. And anything that you can share about Enerparc, about the future at Enerparc, what you guys investing in, what you're expecting for the near future?
I think we try to focus even more. As I mentioned, we are leaving also regions and countries. At the moment, Germany, France, and Spain, these are our core markets. We have also a business unit in India, because we see this is, I would say, next to China, one of the hottest market at the moment. We feel comfortable with this, but this is a different story. So when we look into it where we are now, then it's also very clear the traditional way of doing business. I find a piece of land, I design a system, build a solar plant, doesn't work anymore. So that means also for us, it's clear you always have to integrate on new plants, but also on existing plants, battery. So that means there are two things of batteries. One, as we say in Germany, is the green battery, and the other one is the gray battery, and this is also where we work on it. So because we have our own trading platform, the green battery has added value for us, even if probably the IRR is not so super sexy, but we can balance the up and down of the energy production. And this is what we need, flexibility. And our clients, for sure, they would love to have base load, but we can produce energy with a good forecast. And this works with green energy. If you have gray energy, then you are part of the energy trading industry and the mechanism. And this is where, at the moment, you can make good amount of money.
Yeah, but you were saying sexy, no sexy. There is a lot of sexiness to be explored, I still feel. But also, it's in the complexity of how business grew in the sector. There's also a lot of boring stuff that is just as important as the sexy stuff, and we have to do it.
We have to do it. And it's finally also that you have to be in touch with the DSOs, and they send you invoices. You have to control the invoice. You have to send them back. So you have to manage this. So there is a lot of administration work, but even there, we moved in a very clear direction in Enerparc, and this means everyone in the company needs to be AI ready, because you have to increase your own efficiency. Yeah, that means with all the AI tools which are in the market, and even if this is companies like you here, or if it's other startups, you need to have the information that you can be more efficient, and that you can, I would say, shift a bit the boring stuff to the AI. And I think it works.
It works. I think it's something that we're also pushing a lot of PVKs, use of AI internal, and how we bring also to our solutions. That's awesome. So I want to thank you for your time today. This was super interesting.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Well, we heard across these conversations that solar's next phase is not about proving the technology anymore. It is about making the system around solar work. The grids, the markets, the storage, the financing, and the project execution. This is What Matters, a podcast by PVKs. To keep following the series, subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. You can also find direct access to all our episodes at pvks.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.